we are allowed to choose the direction of our life, no matter what anybody else out there thinks, no matter what even the past version of us 5 years ago thought that we should be doing right here today. We're allowed to change that. If we get to that point in life and it no longer feels good for us, we are allowed to go, wait a second, let's pivot into something different, ideally something better. It's not that there's a lack of money in our world right now. It's that people are hanging on to that feeling or that perception of it. So if we can flip the script in our brains of, okay, there's not a lack of money out there. There is more money today than there was a year ago, way more money than there was 10 years ago. There is so much money around me. What can I do to attract the money to me? And I think that comes down to, how can I make money that feels good?
Beautiful soul, welcome back to the Abundance Club podcast. I am your host, Amy Wilkinson, and I'm really happy that you are tuning into today's conversation. I have fellow manifestation teacher and host of the Manifestation and Money Club, Jen Schulz, in the Abundance Club today. And one of the things that I really loved about this conversation, aside from the fact that it was really wonderful and refreshing being able to riff and dive into manifestation with another manifestation coach, was how much it brought us back to a very simple but powerful question that quite often we don't ask ourselves, which is, what do I want? Like, what do you want? Not what do you think you should want, not what everybody else expects of you, not what you've been conditioned to believe is the safe or sensible choice, but what do you actually want? Jen shares her journey from feeling deeply unfulfilled in a traditional career to retiring from her job at just 34 years and creating a life on her own terms. What I found really refreshing is that her journey into manifestation wasn't planned. She almost accidentally stumbled on it by becoming willing to ask herself different questions and feel into what she wanted and follow the breadcrumbs that life was placing in front of her. So throughout this conversation, we explore the permission to pivot, the courage to choose a different path, even when it doesn't make sense to others, and the importance of trusting yourself enough to follow what feels aligned. We also dive into money, abundance, scarcity, and some of the ways we unknowingly hold ourselves back from receiving more. I always enjoy sitting down with another teacher in the space because while our perspectives may be different in some ways, there's often so much shared truth at the heart of this conversation. I think that you are really going to take a lot away from this episode. Please make sure before we dive in, you're following along to the Abundance Club podcast. Hit the follow, the subscribe button, and the bell for notifications. And without further ado, let's go dive in. Hey, Jen, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the Abundance Club. So good to have you here.
I am so excited to be joining you today.
Yeah, this is cool. We were just chatting about how cool it is because Jen is also a manifestation teacher and has a podcast called Manifestation and Money. And it's just a great opportunity to have a conversation with somebody else that loves to dive in nice and deep into the world of manifestation. I'm so excited to hear your perspective because there's so many different perspectives and teachings. So this will just be fun to dive in and see what we want to uncover. It's
Yeah,
really
I
cool.
agree.
So let's go straight into this world of manifestation. I would be curious to know to begin with, like what does manifestation mean to you? And likely that might be based on your story and your personal experience. But if we were to distill it, if you were to distill it, what do you feel like the essence is for you of manifestation?
I feel like the essence of manifestation is this beautiful co-creation. I'm getting just that feeling and that clearness of what you want in life. And the universe just aligns with you and starts giving you all these beautiful synchronicities and opportunities for you then to say yes to co-create, to go after what you want. And I accidentally fell into manifestation years and years and years ago. We can talk about that later. But yeah, manifestation for me is just the essence of getting clear about what you want and then paths opening up to get you towards what you want.
Mm. So tell us about what happened for you then, because you were in a 9 to 5 career.
Mm-hmm.
had an early retirement at 34, threw yourself a retirement party, which I love, by the way. You have to tell us about that. So, when you say that it kind of found you or you stumbled upon it, can you speak a bit more about that journey for you and what that was like? Because I feel like there's a lot of my listeners who are in that place of being in a role that maybe they've been doing for a while because they think they need to, for money, for security, for all of these reasons. And then when it comes to this big D word of desire and feeling like there's something more that you want, it can be really scary to take that leap and to bridge that gap. So let's unpack that a little bit and feel free to share how you got to this place in your journey.
Absolutely. And it totally, you hit the nail on the head. It stems back to that job. And that the whole manifestation came about because I was at that soul sucking job that just didn't feel good for me. But I was a former people pleaser. I grew up thinking I had to go
Mm.
to school, I had to get the job, especially a pension job, and then just ride it out till retirement. That's just what I thought you were supposed to do. You grow up and you're just like, this is a box that you're supposed to check. And I was doing that and I was absolutely miserable. And this was me at that point, probably in like my later 20s, when I really started going, wait a second, I can't be doing this every day. Like, this no longer feels good. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't know about you, but if you're doing something day after day that doesn't feel good, that drains your tank. And you go home at the end of the day, even after you go home from your job, you don't have the energy left to put into the things that you want to do because you are just so depleted because you are signing yourself up day after day for something that doesn't feel good. So that is kind of the essence of where I started saying, I have to do something different here. I know this is
Mm.
what my mom, my dad, society has told me I'm supposed to be doing, but this doesn't feel good for me. And I need to honor that in me, because the more I become an adult, the more I realize that we are allowed to choose the direction of our life, no matter what anybody else out there thinks, no matter what even the past version of us 5 years ago thought that we should be doing right here today. We're allowed to change that. If we get to that point in life and it no longer feels good for us, we are allowed to go, wait a second, let's pivot into something different,
Mm.
ideally something better. So when I started getting that nudge of, I don't want to do this anymore, is where I started accidentally manifesting at that point. I started asking myself the question, what do I want? And through that, I started exploring different job opportunities and stuff like that. But at the same time, I also got given two books by two different people that just fell into my lap with me going, I'm just at this place, things don't feel good. They're like, oh, you should try reading. It was a Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad book, and a Jack Canfield, The Success Principles book.
Mm.
So those two fell into my lap at the same time. And it was the Rich Dad, Poor Dad book that ultimately ended up getting me curious about real estate and investing in rental properties, which allowed me to then down the road leave the job that I was at. But it was in that Jack Canfield book where it was just loaded with little exercises that I didn't realize self-help books kind of lead into the world of manifestation, because they're getting you clear on what you want, right? And that is just the essence of manifestation. Is if you can get clear on what you want, then you know physically what to say yes to moving forward. But that's where I think the beautiful synchronicities start showing up. So in that Jack Canfield book, I did an exercise, and it was simply, what do you want to be, do, and have? And I was like, So I wrote down on a little notebook what I wanted to be, do, and have. It was just a sheet of paper, tucked it back into that book, folded up, put it on my bookcase. And then it was about a year later when I was packing up to move that that sheet of paper fell out of that notebook. And every single thing I had put on that be, do, have list had come into my life. And it was tangible things, like things I could go out and purchase, but everything came into my life in a way that I had to say yes to them. Like there was a specific blue jacket I wanted on there. I happened to walk past it in an off season. It was 70% off on the clearance rack.
Mm.
There was buy a house, get married. At the time I'd married my husband. We were packing to move, which was the whole reason that I was packing up this bookshelf. And the exact amount of money left in the escrow account when we closed on the sale of our house was the amount of money I needed to say yes to a trip to Cancun with my sister and my parents.
Mm.
So almost the dollar. So all of these little things that seemingly little things that had come off of that list made me stop and pay attention because they all compounded into a holy crap moment of this is like my magic list all of a sudden. What is this and how can I get more of it? So that was essentially where I accidentally stumbled into manifestation. And then, of course, I went back. I actually, when that notebook fell out, I sat on my couch and I just started rereading that book over because I'm like, there's something in this book that is
Yeah.
magic. There was an element of magic that had been brought into my life of, I guess, just that spark, like that inspiration or that
Mm.
possibility had been brought back into my life of good things can happen.
So beautiful. It's like the power of your pen. Like you wrote out a new story for yourself. You know, you mentioned about pivoting and how just because you have been in those circumstances doesn't mean that that's your sentence, right? Doesn't mean like
Mhm.
you actually, I feel like I say this all the time, but we really need to embed it into ourselves. Like you actually get to choose. You actually get to decide. So I love that you had written it down, and I wonder what you did in that process. You know, people are always wanting to know, like, what did you do? But like, I wonder what you did. And I'd imagine, from what I'm understanding, is there would have been that sense of writing it down and likely kind of letting it go and allowing
Mhm.
it to be. You know, I think so much of the time we get our hand in and we try to micromanage the situation. And this is where I think we can create a lot of distance between where we are and what we're wanting to experience in life. So, what was the process for you in that you think was so powerful for this to occur quite effortlessly? Because that's what we're all seeking, right? Is that effortless
Mhm.
manifestation. And the other thing that I want to point out before I forget, when you mentioned about Jack Canfield and you said it was the be, you know, be, do, have, what do you want to be, do, have? And I just note that the being was at the top, right? Like,
Mhm.
who do you want to be? Because I think so often we have it reversed around the other way. We think we've got to have it first,
Mhm.
and then the being comes after. Like, my happiness will come once I've achieved this, once I'm in that marriage, once I've got that house. And we've got it all backwards. And
Mhm.
reverse engineering that process and stepping into the beingness of it, right, is is the way through. So I know I've taken you on two kind of big questions there. So let's back it up a little bit around that. So talk us through, was there a specific process that you think was really powerful for you in manifesting that? And talk about maybe the identity shift in the beingness that was required in that.
Yeah. And I think, like, by me accidentally doing that manifestation exercise, yes, the doing it and not having the expectation of, oh, this is what I want, this is what I'm calling into my life. I think that's exactly what happened. I put it out there for what I wanted. And then I was just so open to when those opportunities show up. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. The dresses on or the jackets on sale. This is amazing. I can go on the trip to Cancun because I have exactly enough money. Weird. Like, it wasn't until I looked backwards and went, ah, that was manifestation. And I think the more we try to intentionally manifest in our lives, because that's what we do. Once we realize the magic of it, we want more of it, right? And I think the gripping onto it, the we want that exact outcome so much that it's so hard to allow the space for it to show up, but it or something different or something even better to show up. Like, it
Mm.
just makes me think of I have a lake property, but before I got the lake property that I have now, and the one I have now is amazing. It's at the same lake as my sister, but prior to that manifestation, there was a property at a different lake and I wanted it and I tried so hard to get it.
Mm.
But once the bank said, no, you can't have that, I let go and went, oh, okay, fine. I can't have that. It allowed for this new, even better thing to show up. So it's it's hard to do. Like, it's really hard to articulate. How can you manifest, get clear on what you want, but then detach from that outcome,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. I think that that's really the secret sauce. And I think because we've also been conditioned to control our lives and to control outcomes. And we want to know, right? We want to know, when's it going to happen? How is it going to happen? And we start to then, I talk about it like going out of our business into God's business, right? Or like edging God out when we're driven by the ego rather than this co-creative partnership, like us with the divine, us with the universe. And a big part of that is understanding what our role is. What your role is in that moment was getting really clear on what is it that I want? What's my desire? And we have to be able to not smother it, but leave room for the magic to occur, because
Yeah.
these are things, and I talk about this as well, like these are things that are outside of our control. You could not have made those things happen, right?
Mhm.
You could not have, even if you tried to get that exact amount of money in your bank account that you needed for that, like there is a divine force and a synchronistic force that we are in collaboration with, that we are working with, and we just need to know how to and use that word, like allow it in.
Mhm.
So I think that's so, so important, is that loosening of the grip. But you're right. As soon as we then start to consciously get into the driver's seat, it becomes a little bit tricky because we do form that attachment to what we desire. Can you speak
Mhm.
about money with this as well? Because this is your podcast. This is obviously your area. Talk us through then, what was the step from you, like moving it out of, you went from the 9 to 5, you went into the retirement, the early retirement. How did you then move into what you're doing now and having this podcast and creating this new life for yourself?
Yeah, and it happened in the sense that I went from that job and learning about real estate because when I looked in the mirror and said, "Oh, what don't I like at the job?" It turned out I didn't like a boss. I didn't like showing up at somebody else's schedule. I didn't like
Mm.
building somebody else's dream. So it was all of these things that I realized if I went out and said yes to another job, I was kind of signing up for that same thing. So that's when I was like, okay, I'm unemployable. I have to do something different,
Mm.
is where the real estate piece came in. And learning to say, I don't have to work hard for money, because that was another thing that was just in my head. Like you work hard for money. That's why you got that pension job. You work hard for it, you keep it. So that was another limiting belief that I was kind of carrying throughout this. And once I let go of I don't have to work hard for money, and we became house hackers, my husband and I. So we essentially bought a house with 2 units in it. We lived in one, we rented out the other, and then we bought another property, moved into it, and kind of just kept doing the same thing, piggybacking it. So I was able to replace my income by doing that. And now to this day, I still have those rental properties. I'm still making money from them. And I realistically only have to work at them for a couple hours a month, which is to me not having to work very hard for my money. So I was able to
Mm.
crack through that limiting belief. And now I get to go out and have fun. I started a family after that. And yes, I threw myself a retirement party just as the more I got clear on manifestation and learning, I was like, I need to just draw a line in the sand here to commit to myself and to commit to all the people around me that I'm serious here. I am not employable. I am from this moment forward going to make money on my own terms. And I threw myself that retirement party. And my grandpa, he he was just shaking his head at me like, "You crazy kid." And he turns 94 this month. And I'm sure he's still shaking his head at me, but that was 10 years ago now. Like, I did it. I
Mm.
put that line in the sand and I'm able to move forward from
Yeah.
that. It's kind of like, I don't know, in co-creation and manifestation, sometimes you have to set those anchors, those things that you are just declaring that this is
Yeah.
what you're doing.
There's power in that word, right? And I can feel that in your energy. Like you had that certainty. You decided. I think often we kind of like hold on to the pool fence while we dip our toes in, and we want to, or we move forward, but we've got that plan B. We've got that backup plan. And I learned that a long time ago. It's like, don't have a plan B, right? You have your plan A. You commit to your plan A. Yes, you can pivot
Mhm.
as you will, like when you're guided by spirit in that way. But I loved that was a real identity claim for you as well in having that retirement. Like, this
Yeah.
is who I am. And there's so much power. Can I ask you, did you actually have a physical party that you invited people to?
I did.
Oh my
Yeah, I
God.
did. And then like people brought me cards and gifts, and it was so special because it made me feel really supported in what I was doing, and I feel like having the support of the family and friends around me really helped me be able to make that shift and go, "Yes," and embody, "This is who I am. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I am now a retired person that's doing this thing." And that doesn't mean, let me clarify something here. On that last day of employment from that job that I put in my notice and left, I went home and I cried.
Yeah.
Like, there was this almost unraveling of I was letting go of a piece of me. Maybe I was letting go of the 9 to 5 grind Jen. Maybe I was saying goodbye to her, but I don't know, but I sat out in my backyard and cried for a good 5-10 minutes in the sunshine, and then after that, I felt so empowered and so much lighter, and I was like, "I did it."
Mm.
And confidence grew from that, and yeah, so there was definitely an identity shift that happened throughout that process.
That's so, yeah, I can so relate. I sold my business 3 years ago and I'd had it for 15 years. We had yoga studios, and I can just remember that huge identity shift. It was so palpable. I even laughed because the day after we sold the business, I went to go, and you open up your iPhone and it has your face ID, and it's like my face ID didn't work. I was like, I'm not who I was yesterday. And I had the same emotive release of that as well. Like we really have to be able to die to the identity, right? Like die to the old identity, die well in order to then move into that next stage of the rebirth. Like in order for the rebirth to happen and we start to become more of who we came here to be, which is so cool. So when we look at then wealth creation, where do you feel people are? You spoke a little bit about limiting beliefs and changing some of those beliefs. Where do you feel people might still be limiting themselves in how they're approaching money? And this is such a big topic. Whenever I have podcast episodes that focus around wealth and money, they're always the ones that people just keep coming back to, and they do really, really well. So where do you feel people are still playing small or limiting themselves when it comes to their like tapping into a logical wealth, tapping into a higher level of wealth consciousness and wealth creation?
Mhm. I think, yeah, the working hard for money is a big one for people.
Mm.
Also, I don't know if it's the same in Australia for you as it is here in Canada right now. Our grocery bills since COVID and with the stuff going on in the world are jumping up. So people
Yeah.
have this feeling that money is scarce in the sense that their their dollars, their currency isn't going as far as it used to go. Where in reality, if you peel back the layers, it's because the governments right now are printing so much money to keep our economies going that they're flooding dollars into the market. That's what's affecting all the
Mm.
inflation and everything. So it's not that there's a lack of money in our world right now. It's that people are hanging on to that feeling or that perception of it. So if we can flip the script in our brains of, okay, there's not a lack of money out there. There is more money today than there was a
Mm.
year ago, way more money than there was 10 years ago. There is so much money around me. What can I do to attract the money to me? And I think that comes down to, how can I make money that feels good? Like, there's so many people I think that are out there. I feel like I'm kind of going in a little bit of a circle here, but that are at jobs that aren't fulfilling, that are at jobs
Yeah.
that they just feel obligated because I lived that life. I felt like I was obligated because I had made that commitment. I know people who have gone to school to get certificates, so they feel that therefore they are stuck at this job because they put in the money to do the training to be where they are. But at the end of the day, if you're not loving what you're doing, you're not loving what you're doing to make money, that is going all out in your life. That is going out into your family life. That is showing up in your bank account because you're not as happy. All of these things are linked together. If you can find ways to make money that feel good for you, or at least I've had one lady, it was a book, Barbara Shear. talks about if you can find like a good enough job. So say making money is not your, oh, you have to go and it has to be the thing that does it for you. If you have the good enough job where you're working with good enough people, feeling like you're doing a good job, go home at the end of the day and you just get to walk away from it with zero attachment, zero ill feelings, and still have the energy to put into life, you are going to have a good life from that. You are going to have the energy. You're probably going to start up a side
Mm,
hustle. The money will
mm,
flow if
mm.
you are able to bring more elements into your life where you feel in alignment with what you should be doing.
Yeah.
Did that make sense? Because I feel like
Yeah,
I kind of
it
swirled there.
absolutely does. It absolutely does. And I think that you're speaking to so many people that feel I have to stay in this because, and I think that this is one of the biggest limitations, that is the source of my abundance, right? That is the source of my money. So we tie our work, our job, our employer as being our provider, right? And people might be listening to this and go, yeah, that's where I receive our money. But as you said, like we have trillions of dollars. Like there is actually an infinite amount of abundance that is circulating around us. We just need to understand how to make ourselves available to receive it. And by what you're saying is the following your joy, the doing the things that light you up is what brings you into that higher level of availability and receptivity and vibration to be able to then become available for those things, right? So,
Yeah.
speak a little bit more about that. Like, can you speak directly to that younger version of you that felt those things, felt that they needed to stay in a 9 to 5 job or a job that, as you said, was soul sucking? Where do you begin? Like where do you begin? Where do you start this process if you know, yeah, I want to feel more lit up. I want to actually experience joy in what I'm doing. I actually would love to tap in to a whole new level of abundance other than just what's coming through this particular channel, right? How do we start to open up to money coming in new forms and other ways?
Mhm. I think a lot of it too comes down to following your intuition. I think you know before you really know. I think you can feel it in your body. I think you can like you don't necessarily have to know it in your brain, and I think that sometimes is the last piece that we know it before we make those decisions, but you can feel it in your heart. You can feel it in your gut. You just get your spidey senses going on things that you should or shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
I think if we can start there as our point of, yes, this is for me, no, this isn't for me, that there alone aligns you with where you should or shouldn't be going in life. And things go from there. And I think it's okay to not try to fit yourself into a box too. If I think of back to employment, I thought I had to go to the traditional job model. And then I hit a point in my life where I was having kids or seeing my friends have kids where they were struggling to try to hold this career life alongside having kids where really they wanted to be there to drop their kids off at school in the morning and pick them up, and they couldn't do that, and that was a really sore spot for them,
Mm.
where I had someone else who was like, "You know what? I am just going to step away from my job. I'm gonna be at home with my kids. I'm going to clean houses during the day while my kids are at school." So I'm still making an income, but at the end of the day, I am able to do the things I want to do, which is be there for my kids at these certain times a day. So using your compass to what do you want with your intuition, I think that is the starting point.
Mm. And that kind of loops us back into where we began this conversation as well in the co-creative process. It's like, okay, if we are co-creating with this divine force, with the universe, then we need to be able to receive the information. Like I think, receptivity is such a big piece in all of this. Like to be able to start to receive the abundance, we need to start to receive the guidance to pay attention to the way that life is communicating with us. And I refer back to what you said about all of a sudden having a couple of people showing you books. Like it's all there for us. Like it's all hidden in plain sight when we start to open up. And I talk about like even start to have the conversation, start to dialogue with this force and say, hey, show me. show me the way. I'm open to it, and start to open your eyes and see the synchronicities and be open to the signs, because life loves you and is here to show you the way with all of that. So it's all there when you start to make room for it, isn't it?
It totally is. And oftentimes you don't see it until you start looking back at the path.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh,
Yeah.
now I see all the little ways that this connected together.
Yeah. Yeah. What are the main things that you focus on now in your manifestation journey? Let's say in your conscious co-creation journey, because everybody has got all their little tips and tools and strategies around manifestation. What do you feel for you personally, or maybe you guide people through this in your podcast or with your clients? Like, what are the key things that you suggest that people bring into their practice? What does that look like?
I like to keep it playful, and I have a group called Manifestation Playground just for this reason, because I don't think there is a one size fits all. I think it's like if I put a big bowl of pasta in front of you and I gave you a spoon, a fork, chopsticks, you could figure out how to eat that bowl of pasta, and I might use a different tool than you do, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's allowing yourself that playfulness of to find what works for you. And what works for you one week might be totally different a few months down the road. But how can you get clear on what you want? And how can you help yourself connect with that desire? Again, without gripping onto it, just getting so clear on what you want and just expecting that, yes, this is going to show up in my life and get ready to receive it. So if you're trying to manifest a new partner in your life, but you go to bed at the end of the day and the other side of your bed is stacked up with books and
Yeah.
your closet is jam full, like, so how can you start expecting or creating space for that thing with excitement of how it's going to show up, what it's exactly going to be like without gripping onto it? So just I think coming at it from a playful approach. I always like to treat manifestation like an experiment. If I find a
Mm.
new tool or technique that I hear about, I'm like, "Oh, I wanna try that." Like, for example, up until well, now that was 2022 now, so several years, we're going back in time now, but I hadn't heard of scripting up until that point.
Mm.
So I tried it out,
Mm.
and I had a manifestation come into my life so fast that I was like, "Holy smokes, that was amazing." So I think you have to try what works for you. How can you get clear on what you want? Every year I love doing vision boards. It's like my January becomes my dedicated vision board month because I love the process of it takes me a month. It honestly does because I love the getting really clear on what I want. I love sourcing the perfect pictures to go on there. It used
Mhm.
to be a really fast process, but now it's almost like a ritual for me in January. So I think try things on. Like you said, you could go look online and you could probably find 101 different ways to manifest. If you there's
Yeah.
probably even a blog called that, right? You could
Yeah.
probably find that, and it's just trying them out to see what works for you in your current state.
Yeah. And I think that that can trip people up as well, because there is a lot of information out there. There's a lot of people that will say, I did it this way. And so then we think, well, if that person did it through scripting or through this way or that way, because there's so many different ways, then that will work for me. And we each have our own unique individual journey, right? Our each kind of bespoke journey of what it's going to look like. And I think it's really great advice. Like if something doesn't feel right for you, that's okay. That might not be your journey with it. I used to do vision boards. And it was funny. I had a friend that I hadn't seen for a really long time, and she was living with me when I was, no, she visited me when I was in my late 20s. I'm now 44. And then she came and visited me in my current house that I'm living in not that long ago. And she said to me, because she's got a really good memory, unlike me, she can just remember details of things. And she said, Amy, this was your vision board. She's like, I remember seeing this and this house and every, like, she goes, this was on your vision board. I was like, was it? I wasn't even aware, right? So talk about like looking back and seeing it. And she's like, yeah, this was totally on your vision board. And I used to do vision boards for that period in my life. That was something that worked for me. And then I've gone through another era of my life where I did the scripting and all of that. And I used to, when I was a teenager, I used to write out affirmations, like hundreds of affirmations. it worked for me then. And it's kind of like, what tools do you need for the level of the game that you're at right now? Because they
Yeah.
might be new tools, and maybe the old tools that you had for the other level of the game aren't going to work for you anymore because you're being asked to evolve, but only you are going to know what that is. So I think it's a big part of like trusting in yourself, trusting in what feels right for you, and being able to pivot, being able to go, you know what, that doesn't work for me anymore. What am I being invited into? And I think that this is manifestation, really. It's part of our evolvement too, isn't it? Like it's who we're allowing ourselves to become and what we're learning about ourselves. So yeah,
Hmm.
I love that.
And I just want to say in there too, if manifestation feels like work, it's probably
Mm.
not working for you. The tool's probably not working for you. So if it's feeling like work, like you said, sometimes it felt good to write out affirmations over and over. If that feels good, go for it. If that all of a sudden feels like work, it's probably not working for you. I had a weird, quirky one work out for me where I literally drew a sketch of myself. So I had put on a little bit of weight after having my second child. And so I drew a sketch of myself wearing this dress that I had in my closet that didn't quite fit, but I wanted to fit into. I also was coming out of dealing with frozen shoulder in both arms. So I drew a picture with my little stick man with its arms in the air because I wanted full movement of my shoulders. And I drew me standing beside a hot tub because I wanted a hot tub in my yard. Within a year, all three of those things. And I just had this little ticket tucked into my underwear drawer. Like it was the weirdest, quirkiest little manifestation, little stick drawings, and it totally worked. For me in that time postpartum, I didn't have a lot of mental effort. So whatever works for you in the season that you're at, if it feels good, go with it.
And believe it too. You know, I think that
And
that's big.
believe
If you
it.
believe that doing a stick figure of yourself, like if you believe in that, that's going to work for you. If
Mhm.
you believe in without the grippiness, but if you believe that and it feels good, right? If it feels good for you to do the vision board, do the vision board, but not from a place of force that this is what I think I need to do in order to manifest. That's the difference, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like if you feel like, yeah, it can't come from a place of I need to do this.
Yeah, and
It
I
can come
noticed when
from
you spoke about it, you got excited about it, right? Like you love
right.
it, you got excited about it. That's how it's meant to feel.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So, what about inspired action then? You speak about manifestation and inspired action. How does one start to discern the difference between aligned or inspired action and the action, the doing that's coming from subtle control or fear?
Yeah. I think aligned action and inspired action. Well, for me, inspired action are oftentimes those thoughts that are coming to me in the shower. I don't know why. They come like lightning bolts and I'm like, "Yes, that is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing," or "Yes, I need to go do that." Like it's like these downloads I get. Those to me are the
Uh-huh.
inspired actions, those ones that you're like, "Yes, I need to go do that." You just again, it's the thought is coming to you, but you're more feeling it than you're thinking the thought. You just
Yeah.
know it's aligned for you. I don't even know how to fully articulate that. And oftentimes, the aligned actions, you are putting in the work, but again, it doesn't really feel like work. Like you don't really mind doing the work. You can be putting in a lot of effort, but it doesn't necessarily feel like work. Like it doesn't feel, maybe I'm
Mm,
just relating back to when I was in the 9 to 5 grind. It doesn't feel like the kind of work that is taking away from you. It feels like the kind of work where time is passing really fast when you're doing the work. To
mm,
me, those are the aligned actions when you know you're on the right track.
mm. Yeah. Yeah. And the I think the fear and the control can feel a lot more grippy as well. Like we get a lot more, it feels a lot more urgent, a lot more attached to it. Mm,
Yes, they yeah, you can just feel it in your body, like, even just you saying that, I you just get that heaviness feeling in your body of when you're I guess that you're pushing through something, and I mean, sometimes I have to clean my toilet or do laundry, and I don't necessarily wanna do it, right? Sometimes we have to do things, but it shouldn't come with that heavy, grippy feeling. Like, even moving through fear, it there's still that pull. Maybe it's the excitement. Maybe it's the what if that is still pulling you through the fear to get you through it. Um, Yeah, it's just not that heavy feeling.
How do we manage fear in this? A lot of people hold themselves back because of fear, leaving the job, going and starting something that really lights them up, following their joy. I mean, even just with that, there can be a lot of fear that it brings up. How do you navigate that?
Ooh, that's a good one. I think for me, there just comes an element of trust within the fear. And maybe it's because I have good support around me. Maybe it's because I know that I'm gonna be okay on the other side of it. Because oftentimes you get fearful and you shut yourself down from even doing the thing, but at the end of the day, it's not something that's likely going to kill you, or it's just a matter of like we might bruise our ego a little bit if we don't make it through. We might get a little bit embarrassed. We might, there's moving through fear is usually kind of an ego based thing that we're trying to get through. We're just trying to save face a little bit. So if you can tell yourself that you're going to be okay, you're going to be okay no matter what happens, even if it doesn't work out the way you expect it to, but at the same time hold the expectation that it will work out the way you want. Moving through fear is a choice, and sometimes you just have to say, "I'm gonna do this thing," and hold the expectation that no matter what happens on the other side, you're gonna be okay.
Mm. And it's always present too, isn't it? Right?
Mm.
It's always there. I say to people, if you're waiting to be free of fear and doubts before you make a move, before you do something new, like you're going to be
Mm.
waiting a really long time because it's a protective mechanism and it's here to keep us alive.
Yeah, and on fear, I'm curious your thoughts on this. I find if I'm going through like a big manifestation, sometimes I get what I've heard referred to as like a terrier barrier, or you hit this wall and it could be this last push that you have to go through something. For me, it often shows up in my life as a migraine. So I'm about to do the big thing that I
Mm.
want to do, and wham, the universe slams me with this migraine, and it can show up as other things, but where it's almost like, are you sure you want this thing? Like,
Mm.
to push
Mm.
through it. Does that ever happen
Mm.
to you in manifestations?
100%. Yeah. I mean, look at labor and those final contractions, right? When you meet the peak of the contraction, like the hardest one. I don't know what they have a term for it as well. But things kind of speed up in intensity as we get closer to the prize, the manifestation, like having that beautiful baby in your arms. You do get tested, right? Like you get to that point where you're like, I I don't know if I can do this. I don't think I can do this. This feels too much. And
Mm.
I think that that's when a lot of people will give up.
It's when a lot of people do give up.
Yeah. Because they think this is just, I can't do this. And the fear gets in and the ego gets in. And I think that that's a big part of the ego death right there. Because the ego goes, I can't see in front of me. I do not know what's coming. I can't map this out. I can't control anymore because it's not meant to. And I think that's when the ego has to die. And you are allowing your soul to lead you through. But yes, we get tested right before that. And it is that, as you said, it's like, let's make sure. And I don't say testing in terms of like a punishment, like the universe is kind of like testing you in that way. It's expanding you, right? Like, and that's what
Mhm.
happens in the labor as well. It's like making sure that you are the one who is ready to receive and hold this manifestation, because what we call in, we want it to be lasting, right? Not like
Yeah.
lottery winners that will all of a sudden get all this money and then not be able to hold it because their capacity hasn't expanded. They haven't become the version of themselves who's able to hold that kind of wealth, who's able to live the identity of that. So I think that's the way that we get, I like to use the word prepared rather than tested. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that imagery, the expanding into it. And then there we bring us full circle back to having trust in those moments, just to have the trust to pull you through to, yes, this is what I want.
Yeah, yeah. I don't think that we can keep trust and faith separate from this conversation. I feel like it's so deeply embedded in manifestation. There's no way that I could have manifested the things that I have in my life without the level of trust and faith in what I can't see, in what's happening behind the scenes. It's just, I wouldn't have got there. How about you?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And the more I go down the rabbit hole in life, the more I agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. And it's almost like the universe goes, okay, that was a level of faith. Let's see how you go in this new level because this is a whole new level of faith and trust that's here for you. And the thing about all of that is that we signed up for this. We asked for this. Our ego doesn't know where we're going, but our soul so knows. And we just got to lean
Mhm.
into that more. Yeah. So
Yeah,
good.
well said.
So let's look at wrapping this up for someone that's listening to this right now that like you when you were in that 9 to 5 job, like desires more freedom, more money, more ease. What would you say is the kind of the first shift in being? Let's come back to that B model, like the first shift in being that you would guide them into.
I would say allow yourself to the question of what do I want and follow the breadcrumbs. So if it's a different career that you want, if it's different money making ideas that you have, or like if you're hearing conversations or listening to podcasts where you get these ideas of, oh, I could make money that way, allow yourself to learn about those things. In
Mm,
this day and age, you have so much information at your fingertips, like especially now, like AI that's brand new in the mix, but you can go to libraries, you can listen to things. So whatever is sparking your interest, allow yourself the time, and trust me, you will find the time if you allow yourself to find the time
mm,
to explore the ideas, because you are getting those interests for a reason. You are like, so if you follow those breadcrumbs, you will be aligned with opportunities or synchronicities that are pulling you to the path that you should be on.
yeah. Yeah, beautifully said.
Yeah.
Awesome. How can people reach out to you, Jen? What's the best way?
Well, I'm on my podcast every week, the Manifestation and Money podcast, and I have Manifestation. It's a group on school, so it's a fun place just to come in and play around with manifestation.
Great. I'll pop these details and links in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for being here. It's so great to chat to a fellow manifester, and I love your perspectives. And yeah, just thank you for sharing your story and having the bravery to actually go after what you want. So, and then leading from that place, which is so great. So, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on your show, Amy.